You've probably heard the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Centuries have passed since Rome's dominance over the world ended, but its culture is still influential. Its philosophy, its words, and its architecture are still popular around the world. It was the superpower that, for the first time in history, laid the foundation for a modern army and, to run the empire, established a Senate system for the first time. It successfully operated a democracy for nearly 5 centuries during its republic period. Many modern political terms, such as republic, dictator, senate, and veto, are derived from Roman politics. At the height of the empire, its population was so immense that about 1 out of every 5 people in the world was Roman. If you combine the eras of the Roman kingdom, republic, and empire, Rome's dominance lasted for more than 2000 years overall. How was that even possible? And then how did this superpower eventually decline and why? Let's go ahead and find out in today's video. Many mythological stories exist about the founding of Rome. According to one well-known story, there were 2 twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were set adrift in a river during their childhood because they were the illegitimate children of Mars, the Roman god of war. However, in some way, the children ended up in a forest where a wolf noticed them, and she raised them as if they were truly her own children. Then, together, the 2 of them built a settlement near the Tiber River. But after some time had passed, a fight broke out between them over control of the city, in which Remus died, and then Romulus named the city Rome. There are a couple of other mythological stories about the beginning of Rome as well, but according to modern research, all of these were created by Roman historians of that time to give their kingdom a legendary origin story. To better understand Rome's true origins, we reviewed modern research and found that, according to some archaeological records, Rome was established around 625 BC. At first, it was a small training center located along the banks of the Tiber River, which gradually developed into a larger city. At that point in time, this particular region was known as Etruria and Latium. People lived in small villages and may have united to protect themselves from invasions, which marked the beginning of Rome.
The period from 600 BC to 510 BC is considered Rome's period of kings. The interesting thing is that, at that time, the decision of who would become king was not taken on a hereditary basis. Kings were elected by a ruling body called the Senate. During this period, Rome had a total of 7 kings. The last king on this list was Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, who is also called Tarquin the Proud. According to historians, he was a tyrant, and then an incident happened that changed Rome's history. Lucius Superbus's son was accused of forcing himself on a noblewoman named Lucretia. This news spread through Rome like wildfire, and protests began in many places against Lucius Superbus. Eventually, the people and the nobles together removed Superbus from power, and with this, in 7509 BC, the Republic period of Rome began. A government was formed in Rome, called the Senate. The Senate was divided into 2 sections. One section was called the patricians, whose members came from rich and powerful families, and the other section was the plebeians, which mostly had representatives from the middle class. The patricians and the plebeians together elected 2 leaders, who were called consuls. Generally, most of the power remained with the patricians, and they also misused it, because of this, they often argued with the plebeians. During the Republic period, Rome expanded a lot. By 338 BC, Rome's territory covered the whole Italian peninsula. During this growth, many conflicts happened too. For example, in 319 BC, the nearby Gauls attacked Rome and caused big destruction, but Rome rebuilt itself. After this, led by military leader Camillus, Rome captured all of present-day Italy.
Between 264 BC and 146 BC, Rome once again found itself at war. This period is known as the Punic Wars. These wars were fought between Rome and Carthage. Carthage was a very powerful city-state located on the northern coast of Africa in the region around present-day Tunisia. Overall, a total of 3 Punic Wars were fought. After the first 2 wars, Rome took control of the western Mediterranean region, including Spain and the island of Sicily. During this same period, Rome also defeated Carthage's legendary general and skilled military tactician, Hannibal. Hannibal's story is so interesting and compelling that it could easily be a separate video all on its own. Between 149 and 146 BC, the Third Punic War was fought, and in it Rome defeated Carthage extremely badly. After winning the war, Rome first thoroughly looted Carthage and then completely burned and destroyed the entire city. The Greek historian Appian writes in his book that in the Third Punic War, approximately 200,000 people were killed and the 50,000 people who survived were ultimately enslaved. After that, Rome began expanding steadily toward the east. First, it defeated the kingdom of Macedon, which was still a very powerful kingdom even 200 years after Alexander the Great's death. Rome's military victories not only brought it new territories and large amounts of gold, but the culture and society of these conquered states also had a profound impact on Rome. If you ever visit an Italian city, you will see that Rome they integrated many aspects of Greek architecture, religion, and art into their society. The writings of Greek philosophers greatly influenced Roman thought and philosophy. By 100 BC, military power and territorial expansion had made Rome a superpower. However, as Rome continued to grow, its negative impacts also began to appear. For example, political instability started increasing, and civil wars began to occur. Any leaders who spoke up on behalf of the poor were assassinated. After that, other leaders became afraid to help the poor. Some leaders even used violent methods to bring about political change, but they were killed as well. After that, the republic became extremely unstable and civil wars broke out once again. In situations like these, dictatorial leaders often take advantage of the chaos. Something very similar happened here as well, and Rome ended up with its greatest dictator. It was the year 58 BC. Rome appointed Julius Caesar as the governor of a province in Italy and gave him the responsibility of quickly bringing the remaining regions of Gaul under its control. Gaul was a tribe of Celtic people that covered what is now France, Belgium, Switzerland, and parts of Germany. But conquering Gaul was not going to be easy for Caesar. Because the Gauls were an independent tribe and absolutely would not accept living under anyone else's rule, they selected Vercingetorix as their leader and began preparing for war against Caesar. This conflict is called the Gallic Wars, which began in 50 BC and continued for the next 6 years. In 52 BC, Caesar laid siege to Alesia, a major city in Gaul, for several months. As a result, many people in Gaul began to die from starvation, and those who survived were then attacked and killed. After winning this battle, it can be said that Caesar had essentially won the war as well. The biographer Plutarch writes that in this war, Caesar and his army fought against 3,000 Gauls, killed 1,000 of them, and enslaved another 1,000. The conquest of Gaul made Caesar extremely popular in Rome. As Caesar's popularity and political power continued to grow, the Senate began to feel more and more insecure. For that reason, the Senate ordered Caesar to stop his military conquests and return from Gaul, and in response, what Caesar did was going to change the history of the entire Roman Empire. Caesar refused to comply with the Senate's direct orders. After that, Caesar formed a political alliance with 2 other prominent Roman generals, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus and Marcus Licinius Crassus, and this alliance came to be known as the Triumvirate. Interestingly, Pompey was also Caesar's son-in-law. The Triumvirate became so popular in Rome that the 3 men, working closely together, began to control Rome's politics and shape its public narrative. For a time, everything seemed to be going exactly as planned for Caesar. However, just like with any political alliance, problems started to arise within the Triumvirate as well. First, as he watched Caesar's popularity continue to grow, Crassus wanted to do something so that his own popularity could become equal to Caesar's. In this context, in 53 BC, Crassus launched a major military campaign against the Parthian Empire, but he ended up losing the battle, during which he was killed. Some sources also say that Crassus was captured and that molten gold was poured into his mouth. After Crassus's death, a major power struggle began between Caesar and Pompey. To defeat Caesar, Pompey formed an alliance with the Roman Senate, and in return, the Senate supported a figure who could stand up to Caesar's growing popularity. In 49 BC, despite the Senate's direct warning, Caesar marched toward Rome with his army and crossed the Rubicon River. Basically, Caesar needed to show his power. Because of this very extreme action, Caesar's civil war against the Senate and Pompey officially began. This war, known as Caesar's Civil War, lasted for about 1 year, and ultimately, in 48 BC, Caesar's forces defeated Pompey's army at the Battle of Pharsalus. After that, Pompey had to flee to Egypt, where King Ptolemy had him killed through deception so that he could gain Caesar's support. With this, Caesar now had full and complete control of Rome. Taking advantage of that moment, Caesar declared himself to be Rome's dictator for life. Caesar's dictatorship over Rome lasted from 49 BC to 44 BC. During these 5 years of Caesar's rule, Rome also developed quite significantly. He introduced a few important reforms that helped poor people as well. Public works projects, such as roads and buildings, further increased Caesar's popularity. People began to feel that Caesar had come as a messiah for them. He also started to be followed almost like a demigod. However, even though the Senate had officially recognized Caesar as a dictator, some people in the Senate were still against it and wanted to remove the dictatorship from Rome and restore the Republic. This included Caesar's close associates, Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus as well, who felt that Caesar was misusing his power. Eventually, the two of them, along with some other senators, made a plan to assassinate Caesar. On a day in March 44 BC, a meeting of the Senate was taking place, and Caesar was also present. Some senators surrounded Caesar under the pretense of showing him a petition and then suddenly began attacking him with knives. After that, Caesar was stabbed a total of 23 times in a row. In the midst of the attack, Caesar's eyes fell on Brutus, whom he considered like a son. After that, Caesar said, "Et tu, Brute," meaning "you too, Brutus," which is considered to be his last words. The assassins believed they would take control by murdering Caesar. However, Caesar was so widely popular that the people of Rome rose up together against the Senate. Caesar's death ultimately drove Rome into another civil war once again. This is where Caesar's grandnephew Octavian, whom Caesar had officially adopted, truly enters the story. Octavian formed the second triumvirate together with Caesar's close friend Mark Antony and also Lepidus, and they launched a war directly against the Senate. In 42 BC, at the Battle of Philippi, the three of them defeated the Senate forces and took power. After that, control of the Western Roman Empire was officially given to Octavian. Mark Antony took control of the East and Lepidus was given North Africa, but later on, Octavian pushed Lepidus aside and took full control completely for himself. For several years, Octavian and Mark Antony ruled Rome together, but this alliance did not last for very long. While Mark Antony was ruling the Eastern Roman Empire, he became close friends with Cleopatra, and before too long, the two of them fell deeply in love. An interesting point is that Cleopatra once had an affair with Caesar, and the two of them also had a son together. After hearing this, Octavian began to feel that Mark Antony was now planning to form other alliances in order to increase his power. After that, trust issues gradually started to arise between them, and Octavian began to launch propaganda against Mark Antony, saying that Mark Antony now wanted to make Cleopatra the Queen of Rome. And he had gradually forgotten the principles of Rome, and eventually he was officially declared a traitor. In response, Mark Antony questioned Octavian's legitimacy and said that he had no real claim to Rome because he was not truly Caesar's son. After that, a war broke out between the two of them, and after many battles, the Battle of Actium took place in 31 BC, in which Octavian's naval forces defeated the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. After that, both of them fled to Egypt, but Octavian did not spare them even there and sent his army to keep them under siege for a year. Then, in 30 CE, Antony and Cleopatra accepted defeat and both of them took their own lives. After this, Octavian was declared Rome's first emperor and he adopted the name Augustus. And with that, the Roman Empire began. Augustus ruled for 41 years, and this period is called the Pax Romana, meaning the Roman peace. Before Augustus, Rome always seemed to be dealing with one war or another, or with political instability, and people had grown tired of it. Because of this, people truly liked Augustus's stable rule. Augustus was a highly capable emperor. He prevented conflicts throughout his empire, introduced many progressive laws, and also focused strongly on architecture. These decisions set Augustus apart from other Roman emperors, because when we study history, we can clearly see this. Most Roman emperors were indulgent and not interested in ruling. In 14 AD, Augustus died of natural causes at the age of 75. After his death, he started to be regarded as a god, and this belief continued all the way until the end of the Roman Empire. Even the month of August was officially named after Augustus. After Augustus, his adopted son Tiberius ruled the empire for 22 years. Tiberius's reign was the very same period when Jesus Christ was crucified. After Tiberius eventually died, it was then the turn of his adopted son Caligula to become emperor, who is widely known as a mad and cruel emperor. Caligula would often have many innocent people put to death on charges of conspiracy. The entire Senate was furious at this sheer madness. In this way, Caligula's rule continued for 3 full years, and then one day in 41 AD, when Caligula was walking through an underground passageway for lunch, 2 guards murdered him. However, it was never truly discovered who had arranged it. After Caligula's death, his uncle Claudius was formally declared emperor. Claudius's reign continued for 13 years. It is said that Claudius was especially fond of food and spent much of his time in personal indulgence. He had several wives, and one of them was Agrippina, who later poisoned him and had her illegitimate son, Nero, become emperor. Nero's rule is widely regarded as one of the greatest stains on the Roman Empire. After becoming emperor at the age of 16 in 54 AD, Nero did several things that genuinely shocked people. First, Nero had his own mother killed because she had begun to control him far too strongly. After that, he drained the treasury through extremely extravagant spending. This led to a severe financial crisis in the kingdom, and he had anyone who questioned this action killed. The biographer Suetonius writes about Nero that he did all kinds of evil deeds, such as incest, bestiality, cruelty, and killing people for no reason. Then one day it is alleged that Nero had all of Rome set on fire and blamed the Christians for it, because at that time Christianity was widely viewed as a serious threat to the Roman Empire. Well, this very fire incident gave rise to a famous quote that people still use for dictators today. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. However, there is no proper evidence or source that Nero actually did that. Besides, the fiddle was made about 1,000 years after Nero died, so it is hard to believe this story. It's also entirely possible that Nero's enemies simply fabricated this story in order to defame him. Whatever the case, there was a major fire in Rome around that time. There is real evidence for it. And after this incident, Rome's leaders had absolutely run out of patience. Taking advantage of the moment, the governor of Spain, Servius Sulpicius Galba, did. He openly challenged Nero for the throne. As he saw the steadily growing support for Galba, Nero realized that his rule was finally coming to an end. To save his own life, he had to flee from Rome, and soon after that, the Senate officially declared Nero an enemy of the state. To avoid the humiliation of being captured and publicly executed, Nero took his own life at the age of 30 because he had no official heir. Therefore, the Julio-Claudian dynasty, which had continued since the time of his great-great-grandfather Augustus, came to an end with Nero. After Nero's death, the very next year came to be known as the Year of the Four Emperors. It was the year 69 CE, With the Senate's complete backing, Galba was selected as the new emperor. In many ways, Galba was not much better than Nero. For the benefit of his corrupt friends, Galba temporarily withheld the pay of the Roman army, which caused revolts to break out within the army yet again. The Roman legions in Lower Germany declared General Aulus Vitellius to be their emperor. But before another civil war could break out, Galba's Praetorian Guard, meaning his personal bodyguards, killed Galba. This was the second time that an emperor's own bodyguards had assassinated their own emperor. General Aulus Vitellius was a major contender to become emperor, but the Senate made one of its own senators, Otho, the emperor, because he was quite influential within the Senate. The interesting thing is that Otho used to be a supporter of Galba, but later turned against him. Otho had the reputation for being a peaceful and generally good leader. Almost as soon as he took the throne, he faced a major challenge, dealing with Vitellius and his military forces. Otho hoped for a peaceful settlement, but Vitellius neither cared about peace, nor was he willing to abandon his ambition to become emperor. Then a long battle took place between the two armies, but Otho's army suffered a truly devastating defeat at the Battle of Bedriacum. The Roman historian and senator Cassius Dio wrote that 40,000 Roman soldiers died on the battlefield on that day. When Otho learned about this, he decided to stop the fighting from his side. Historians generally believe that if he had continued the fighting, he might have won. But Otho did not want to put his soldiers' lives in danger, and he could not bear the severe shock of thousands of soldiers dying, so he took his own life. It is quite unfortunate that Otho's rule lasted only 3 months, because if he had been given the chance, he would have been a very thoughtful and good emperor, whereas Roman emperors were mostly narcissistic and greedy. There, Otho's name is always remembered as an honest emperor. He is regarded as such. After Otho's death, Vitellius arrived in Rome with his army, and his soldiers at first killed and looted the people of Rome, and they did not even spare the women. And then the Senate surrendered and officially declared Vitellius as the emperor. It would not be inaccurate to call Vitellius a sociopath. He declared himself the supreme leader and began governing like a dictator. Oppression against ordinary people intensified, and it started to seem as though Rome had entered a dark age. Rome now needed a savior, and it was about to get one very soon. A section of the Roman army suddenly launched a revolt and declared their commander, Titus Flavius Vespasian, to be emperor. Then a lengthy war followed, and in the end, Vespasian's army finally entered Rome. When Vitellius realized that he was steadily losing the war, he tried to secretly flee the city as quietly as possible. But some people caught him and dragged him out through the streets of Rome, where they began to spit on him. Then he was brutally tortured and killed, and his body was thrown into the river. In December 2269 AD, the Senate declared Vespasian to be emperor. This marked the end of a long period of turmoil in Rome and the beginning of a new, peaceful and prosperous Roman Empire, which came to be known as the Flavian dynasty. During Vespasian's rule, the construction of the Colosseum began, and it remains one of the world's biggest tourist attractions today. Vespasian was an intelligent and highly capable politician. He worked to restore law and order and took care of both Rome's elite class and its ordinary citizens. He fully restored the power of the Senate and introduced many reforms that were focused on public welfare. Vespasian ruled for roughly 10 years, and after his death, his son Titus became emperor, which made him the first biological son of a Roman emperor to succeed his father. After Titus, his brother Domitian became emperor, but he was assassinated. After that, the period from 96 AD to 192 AD is called the Era of the Good Emperors. During this period, Trajan was regarded by his people as the best emperor. Around this time, Rome became a city of 1 million people, and the empire's territory expanded. It reached the absolute highest point in its long history. Rome connected many new regions through an extensive network of roads. That overall system still defines Europe's transportation map today. After Trajan's rule, Emperor Hadrian reinforced the defenses. He raised large forces in Britain and had the Pantheon built in Rome. Inside the Pantheon, Hadrian also had paintings of his lover Antonius made, which can still be seen today. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius, considered the last good emperor, spent most of his time on military conquests. In breaks between battles, he wrote Meditations, a manifesto of his Stoic philosophy. After Marcus Aurelius, under his son Commodus, the Pax Romana came to an end. Commodus enjoyed gladiator fights more than his official duties. Eventually, some of Commodus's enemies had him assassinated by arranging for a fighter and slave named Narcissus to strangle him. After that, Rome declined again. Over the next 100 years, the Roman Empire remained quite unstable. During this period, more than 25 emperors came to power, and almost all of them were assassinated. On one occasion, the Praetorian Guard killed the emperor and put the position of the next emperor up for auction. There were also several emperors whose rule lasted only a few days or weeks. The exact length of some reigns is still uncertain, but the record for the shortest reign belongs to Gordian II at about 22 days. In 285 AD, Diocletian, who was the emperor at the time, divided the Roman Empire into western and eastern parts to manage it properly. Then he created a system in which one emperor ruled the west and another ruled the east, and both came to be called by the title of Augustus. Under both of them, there was also one deputy emperor each, who was given the official title of Caesar. Because of this period came to be called the Tetrarchy. Then in 305 AD, Diocletian did something that was quite rare. He voluntarily gave up the throne, and he became the very first Roman emperor to do so. After that, Diocletian's co-ruler and the emperor of the Western Empire Maximian also chose to retire. Following this, Constantine, the son of the Western Empire Caesar, was appointed as Emperor of the Western Empire, and he was granted both the titles of Augustus and Caesar. However, Maximian's son Maxentius demanded that he be given the title of Caesar as well. After this, war broke out between Constantine and Maxentius. It is believed that before the war began, Constantine saw a cross in the sky and felt that it was a sign from God and that if he accepted it, he would be able to win. Then he had the cross painted onto his flags and also onto the army's banners. In this war, Constantine was victorious and Maxentius was killed. After winning the war, Constantine accepted Christianity and made it the official religion of his empire. Constantine's rule lasted until 357 AD, and after his death, a power struggle broke out among his three sons, but none of them was able to hold on to the throne. After that, in 363 AD, the Valentinian dynasty came to power, marked by power struggles, assassinations, and unstable rule. In 392 AD, after the death of Valentinian II, the emperor of the West, Theodosius III, the emperor of the East, reunited both empires again. But did it last? The united Roman Empire did not last very long. A few years after Theodosius's death, Rome was finally divided between his two sons, Arcadius and Honorius. The East came under Arcadius, which later became the Byzantine Empire, and the West came under Honorius, which was going to come to an end very soon. Gradually, the Greek-speaking Byzantine Empire grew wealthier, while the Latin-speaking Western Empire fell into an economic crisis. The Byzantine Empire's wealth helped it strengthen its fortifications. When invaders saw Constantinople's strength and Rome's weakness, it seemed much easier for them to attack the West. During this period, a Germanic tribe, the Goths, repeatedly attacked the Western Roman Empire. Another tribe, the Vandals, burned everything to ashes in 455 AD. By 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire had been completely destroyed. One particularly interesting point was that Rome's final emperor was named Romulus, which was also the name of Rome's very first emperor. After being defeated by a Germanic general named Odoacer, Romulus was sent away into exile and he spent the rest of his life there, and that is how the Roman Empire finally came to an end.
Of the empire.